He got canceled after 2 seasons on a show where he spent half his screen time in a dress, living in a women's hotel just to afford the rent in New York City. The network gave up on him. America didn't. We'll get to him, and he's not even the strangest story on this list. Welcome back to the Throwback Network. Before Die Hard, Bruce Willis was a wisecracking detective on a show almost nobody streams today. Before an Oscar, Marisa Tomei was a college freshman on a Cosby Show spinoff, gone after a single season. And nearly a decade before ER, George Clooney was swinging a hammer on a sitcom about a girls' boarding school in Peekskill, New York. 10 shows, 10 future legends, and today we're digging up every one of them. The roles nobody remembers that quietly built some of the biggest careers in Hollywood. Let's start at the bottom of the list. Number 10. Number 10. Kelly Bundy, Married with Children, 1987 to 1997. Fox didn't have a real primetime lineup before April 5th, 1987, and Married with Children arrived as the network's first true primetime series, a deliberately unwholesome answer to every squeaky clean family sitcom already on the air, one that needed a teenage daughter dumb enough and shameless enough to make the whole joke land. Christina Applegate was only 15 when she was cast as Kelly Bundy, the promiscuous, dim-witted daughter of Al and Peg Bundy, and she stayed with the role for all 11 seasons and 259 episodes, growing up on camera in real time, right alongside the audience watching her. What started as a 15-year-old's first big break turned into a film and television career that would eventually include Anchorman, The Vacation reboot, and an Emmy-winning run on the dark comedy Dead to Me. And none of it existed yet when she walked into that first audition. Ed O'Neill and Katie Sagal played her parents, Al and Peg, and together the three of them turned Kelly into one of the sharpest tools the writers had. A deliberate counter-programming move against the wholesome, moralizing family sitcoms that had dominated the decade. Shows built in the image of The Cosby Show rather than against it. Critics weren't always kind to the series, but audiences kept tuning in for exactly the reason Fox wanted them to, since nothing else on the air looked or sounded anything like it. Most people know Christina Applegate got her start on Married with Children. Few will remember she was still a teenager when she landed it, or that the entire show existed because Fox needed something, anything, to prove it could run a real primetime network. Number 9. Maggie Lawton, A Different World, 1987. A Different World arrived as a Cosby Show spinoff set at the fictional, historically black Hillman College, and its first season in 1987 needed a full dorm of freshman characters to fill out the world around Lisa Bonet's Denise Huxtable. Maggie Lawton, Denise's roommate, was one of those freshmen, played by a young actress named Marisa Tomei, making one of her first television appearances after a couple of years on the soap opera As the World Turns. She only stuck around for the show's first season before moving on to other projects, and small film roles followed for years afterward, easy enough to miss that it would have been simple to lose track of her entirely. Then, in 1992, she stunned just about everyone by winning the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, playing the sharp-tongued Mona Lisa Vito opposite Joe Pesci in My Cousin Vinny. The show itself was practically guaranteed an audience the moment it was announced, riding entirely on the popularity of Lisa Bonet's character from The Cosby Show, which meant Tomei and the rest of that freshman dorm were introduced to millions of viewers on day one, whether critics warmed up to the concept or not. That head start didn't translate into an easy path afterward, and the small parts that followed were exactly the kind of stretch that ends plenty of acting careers before they ever really start. She only lasted one season on this show. 5 years later, she had an Oscar sitting on her shelf. Number 8. Woody Boyd, Cheers, 1985 to 1993. By 1985, Cheers was already a hit, but the bar itself had a problem. Since Coach, the lovably dim bartender played by Nicholas Colasanto, was gone, and the show needed someone new behind that bar heading into its 4th season. A then unknown actor named Woody Harrelson got cast as Woody Boyd, a sweet, none-too-bright bartender fresh off the bus from Indiana, and he ended up staying for the show's remaining 8 seasons, all the way through the 1993 finale. 5 Emmy nominations and 1 win in 1989. Later, the role had become the foundation everything else in his career was built on top of. long before films like Natural Born Killers made him a leading man rather than just a beloved sitcom face. That same warmth and comic timing carried the character for 8 straight years, and by the time Cheers ended, Harrelson had a resume strong enough to carry films like White Men Can't Jump and, a year later, Natural Born Killers. A total reversal of the sweet, simple-minded bartender America had spent nearly a decade watching him play. The bar needed a new bartender to replace a character everyone loved. Hollywood ended up with a future Oscar nominee instead. Number 7 officer Tom Hanson, 21 Jump Street, 1987 to 1991. Fox's 21 Jump Street was built around a simple hook. Young-looking cops going undercover as high schoolers to bust drugs, gangs, and everything else adult officers couldn't get close to. And by its second season, the show was a certified hit. Johnny Depp played Officer Tom Hanson, and the role made him a teen idol almost overnight. The kind of fame where his photo ended up taped inside high school lockers across the entire country. He reportedly hated every bit of it, wanting to be a serious actor rather than a poster on somebody's wall. And he tried more than once to get himself written off the show, allegedly trashing his own trailer in frustration at one point before he was finally released from his contract after the show's 4th season. Reportedly paid around $45,000 per episode by the show's peak. Alongside co-stars like Holly Robinson, Pete, Depp had exactly the kind of money and exposure most young actors would have killed for, and none of it made the role feel like a fit to him. He said outright that the premise struck him as hypocritical, an anti-drug message coming from a cast that partied as hard as anyone in Hollywood at the time, and he stuck it out through 4 seasons before finally walking away for good. He hated being famous for this show so much that he tried to sabotage it from the inside. It made him a star anyway, whether he wanted it to or not. Number 6. Dr. Philip Chandler, St. Elsewhere, 1982 to 1988. NBC's Street Elsewhere premiered on October 26, 1982, an ensemble medical drama set inside a rundown, underfunded Boston teaching hospital. Exactly the kind of show built to launch careers, because it needed a deep bench of actors to fill out every ward, every hallway, and every overnight shift. Denzel Washington played Dr. Philip Chandler for all 6 seasons and 137 episodes, a steady, central presence inside an ensemble that also included Howie Mandel, Mark Harmon, and Ed Begley Jr. Critics and audiences alike remember the role today as the one that took Washington from an unknown supporting actor to a future 2-time Academy Award winner, the launching point for a film career that would eventually include Glory, Training Day, and some of the most respected work in modern American cinema. Historians of the format often cite the show itself as an early blueprint for the ensemble medical dramas that followed it. The messy, overlapping hospital hallway style that shows like ER and Grey's Anatomy would later build entire seasons around, and it gave a young, mostly unknown Denzel Washington 6 full years to develop range that no single film role could have offered him at that stage of his career. 6 seasons, 137 episodes, and almost nobody outside the show's fandom remembers this was Denzel Washington's first steady job on television. Number 5. Alex P. Keaton, Family Ties, 1982 to 1989. Family Ties was already an established hit sitcom by early 1985. Built around a Reagan-loving teenage conservative named Alex P. Keaton, raised by 2 former hippie parents who had absolutely no idea what to do with him. Michael J. Fox played Alex, and in January of that year, director Robert Zemeckis cast him to replace Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly in Back to the Future, a role Family Ties creator Gary David Goldberg had originally refused to let him take at all, since it would have meant pulling him away from the sitcom entirely. Rehearsing Family Ties from 10 in the morning to 6 at night, then rushing straight to the Back to the Future set to shoot until 2:30 in the morning, Fox spent roughly 3 months surviving on what he's since described as somewhere around 4 hours of sleep a night. He detailed just how close it came to falling apart in his 2025 memoir, Future Boy, describing nights where his driver would practically carry him into his apartment at 3 in the morning with the alarm already set for 4 hours later. None of it would have happened at all if Meredith Baxter, who played his mother on Family Ties, hadn't returned from a leave of absence around the same time, freeing up just enough of his schedule for Goldberg to finally say yes. For 3 months in 1985, he was Alex P. Keaton by day and Marty McFly by night, running on almost no sleep, and he nearly didn't get to play either one of them. Number 4. George Burnett, The Facts of Life, 1985. By 1985, The Facts of Life was already 6 seasons deep, a long-running sitcom about girls at the fictional Eastland School in Peekskill, New York. That year, after the show's in-universe delicacy shop burned down, a young George Clooney joined the cast as George Burnett, a local handyman hired to help rebuild it, a role that put him in around 17 episodes and made him fast friends, on screen, with Blair Warner, Natalie Green, and Joe Polniacek. Almost a decade would pass before ER made George Clooney one of the most recognizable faces on television, so this small, easy-to-forget role landed long before anyone had a reason to remember it. Genuine chemistry with the established cast came easily to him by the time he left the show, the kind of easy, likable screen presence that would become his trademark. Even though almost nobody watching in 1985 had any reason to think they were looking at a future movie star, bouncing through other short-lived shows took up most of the next decade before ER finally made him one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. Before George Clooney was saving lives on ER, he was fixing cabinets and rebuilding a burned-down shop on The Facts of Life. If you're new here, we do this every week, digging up the TV history and the almost forgotten roles hiding behind the stars you already know. Hit subscribe if that sounds like your thing, because the next 3 names on this list are about as big as it gets. Number 3. David Addison, Moonlighting, 1985 to 1989. ABC's Moonlighting paired Bruce Willis with Sybil Shepherd inside a detective agency dramedy, blending screwball comedy, genuine mystery plots, and a will-they-won't-they romance. And it premiered in 1985 to become one of the decade's defining hits. Willis played private detective David Addison, and the performance earned him both an Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor and a Golden Globe, establishing him as a comedic leading man years before anyone thought to cast him in an action movie. That alone would have been a solid career. And then, in 1988, Willis took the role of John McClane in Die Hard and The International. Gun-toting action star that emerged from that single film completely rewrote what audiences expected out of him going forward. Shepherd was already an established film actress when the show cast Willis, then a relative unknown, opposite her, a risk the network took largely because his chemistry with her in the audition room was undeniable. Production itself became notorious for chaos behind the scenes, blown deadlines, and scripts finished days before they were shot. But none of that showed up in the finished product, and none of it slowed down what the role was about to do for his career. He won an Emmy for being funny on network television. Then Die Hard made an entire generation forget he was ever funny in the first place. Number 2. Mork and Mindy, 1978 to 1982. Robin Williams had already spent years working the stand-up circuit in San Francisco and Los Angeles before Mork and Mindy ever existed, building a reputation as one of the most unpredictable live performers in comedy. The show itself started almost as an afterthought, a single guest appearance on Happy Days in February of 1978, playing an alien named Mork sent to observe life on Earth from the planet Ork. That one guest spot turned into its own spin-off series just months later, premiering that September, and it became a genuine phenomenon almost immediately. At one point drawing higher ratings than Happy Days itself, the very show it had spun off from. Practically overnight, the exposure turned Robin Williams into a household name, and it gave him the platform to build the stand-up specials and, eventually, the entire film career most people know him for today. Pam Dauber co-starred as Mindy, the human roommate trying to help Mork make sense of Earth, and their chemistry anchored a show that, at its first season peak, actually outrated Happy Days itself in the Nielsen numbers, an almost unheard-of result for a spin-off still in its first year. Williams used the sudden visibility to fill theaters for HBO specials like Off the Wall in 1978 and An Evening with Robin Williams in 1983, turning television fame into a stand-up career that, in turn, became the foundation for the film career that followed. One alien costume and one very strange spin-off of Happy Days changed the entire trajectory of comedy. Number 1. Kip Wilson, Bosom Buddies, 1980 to 1982. ABC's Bosom Buddies premiered on November 27, 1980, built around a premise that sounds almost impossible to pitch in a network meeting today. Two guys dress up as women just to afford an apartment inside an all-female hotel in New York City. Tom Hanks played Kip Wilson alongside Peter Scolari as his roommate Henry, and it was Hanks's first major television role, landed after casting agents found him working as an off-Broadway understudy with, in his director's own words, no real experience to speak of, just a clear sense of exactly what he did well. Shifting time slots throughout the run kept the show from ever stabilizing in the ratings, and it was canceled after just 2 seasons in the spring of 1982. Looking back, the show holds up better than its cancellation might suggest, and Hanks himself has spoken warmly about the experience, an early stage where he was still figuring out exactly what kind of performer he wanted to be. Largely absent from streaming today, it's one of those forgotten early credits buried underneath everything that came after it. And yet, it's the role that convinced a network to bet on an off-Broadway understudy nobody outside a small theater circle had ever heard of, canceled after 2 seasons. The guy who spent half the show in a dress went on to become one of the most beloved actors in the history of American film. Conclusion: 10 shows, 10 actors nobody was watching for yet, and every single one of them went on to define the decades that followed. Notice what these 10 stories actually have in common. A network needed a bartender, a handyman, a teenage daughter, an undercover cop, and it filled the role with whoever walked through the door and happened to be right for the part that week. Nobody was placing bets on any of these actors becoming legends. The shows just needed someone to play the role in front of them, and the role turned out to be the beginning of something enormous none of the writers or casting agents could have predicted. Picture how different Hollywood would look without any of these accidents. No Moonlighting, and maybe no Die Hard the way we know it today. No Cheers, and maybe no Woody Harrelson at all. No 2-season, quietly canceled sitcom about a guy living in drag, and no Tom Hanks the way an entire generation grew up with him. If you remember watching any of these shows the first time around, drop a comment and tell us. And if you know of another actor whose first real break has been completely forgotten, let us know down below, because we're always digging for the next one. Thanks for watching. This is the Throwback Network, and I'll see you in the next one.